Good afternoon, everybody. This is Michael Pelzel from Switzerland. I'm a composer and church organist, and I also play concerts. I'm very happy and glad to have the opportunity to show some ideas of mine and share them with you this afternoon. So first, I want to present one idea that I have been inspired by my experience being in South Africa with a residency of Pro Helvetia, which is the Swiss Arts Council, in 2010. I had the opportunity to learn a bit to play on acadindas and amarindas in the class of Dizu Platjes in the South African College of Music in Cape Town. And I was very much fascinated by the actually quite simple pentatonic interlocking patterns played by mostly two people on one instrument, which means that each side you will have one player that plays a 2-pitch or 3-pitch pattern on the acadinda or amadinda, and they are interlocking in a 16th note grid. And the interlocking is quite complex in the sense of that one player is on the beat and one is off, but I sort of learned that they are not feeling actually to play offbeat, but it's sort of a on-beat playing, which is just shifted slightly by 1/16th note. So, I mean, obviously it's very hard to play this. And I will just show you a very short example of very good players from Uganda. In this example, there are even 3 people playing each side of the instrument. And after that, I will tell you what I have worked out with that playing technique for pianos and also string instruments. So here comes the example with the Ugandan Amadinda players. So as you have heard in the very beginning of the music, the interlocking patterns that have been played from both sides. The fascinating thing is indeed, if you are in a not too big room or hall with the instruments, you can even hear some additional patterns in the overtone structure of the instruments in the hall. So you can actually sing along some new patterns that nobody plays but exist as a sound experience in the hall, which is very, very interesting. So what I'm going to show you now is how I work with these patterns. So I tried to find a way, a little bit like Stephen Reich or George Ligeti in his piano etudes, to actually adapt these interlocking patterns to a specific composition technique that I have already been working with for quite a bit of time. And I can show you how I did it. I started to work with this technique on 2 grand pianos, and on each instrument, each pitch with the note F was blocked with some rubber, which means that it sounds a little bit like a very little bongo instrument. And I made this to actually have an empty spot so that the players don't have to count and play offbeat in a very high speed. So I will just show you the paper where I notated these patterns that I work with. In my case, it's not only 16th notes patterns interlocking, but it's mostly like slightly destabilized and slightly off time and spastic and irregular patterns that I construct. So it's actually like one grid has 5 notes and the other has 6 notes, and there are pauses in both lines. So I'll just show you in a little bit of time the paper where I notated them. So here you have the patterns that are irregular. So the first one is the 6-5 pattern, where you can see that there is a pause on the 2nd and the 5th and the 6th place of the pattern, and then on the 5 pattern, the pause on the 1st and 3rd place. So you can already see that because the speed is different, but also not very different, you have sort of a pseudo regularity or a slight irregularity, somehow like somebody can't walk really straight or has one foot, one leg longer than the other. That's a little bit the idea. Pattern number B is a little bit similar in the deeper sense of the compositorical idea. You have a 3 and a 4 pattern that also interlock in a little bit similar way. And then 9-6 as well as 12-9. So what I'm looking at is somehow to construct this irregularity. So the first one sounds a little bit like da 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 da. So this kind of, on the long run, in the repetition, regular pattern, but in the detail, irregular. So what I'm going to show you now is this pattern where I can play these patterns. So this would be the example number 1, the 6-5 pattern. I can put 6 numbers and 5 numbers, and then here mark the spots where I want the notes played. So now I can do the same with the 3-4 pattern, and then here mark the first and the second space, and here the first and the fourth, and then play it. So this was the 3-4. I think I made a little mistake in the 6-5, so I'll try again to play this. Just 1 second. Okay, so as a last example, the 9-6 one. Obviously, this can also be done very simple with a notation program. here, some examples. So now I'm going to show you in my music score some patterns where I worked with these, what I just explained now. So for example, here, there is a 6-9 pattern mutating in a 3-9, which is somehow the same, and then going down here. And I can show another one pattern, which is just here. This is that one that we have seen before, the 3-4 pattern, here with 3 voice chords, and then let me find the third and last one. Here is another 9-6, and to end, here 3, again 9-6. So just to give you an idea how I work with them, they are sort of in the middle of other things that happen in a piece and then shine out suddenly, or make processes going from one pattern to the other, and so on. So now I will play you a pattern. So I'm just going now to play you one section of patterns in a piece that you have just seen the score of. And here we go. Another music piece of mine, I will work with 2 MIDI pianos and a keyboard player and orchestra. In this upcoming piece, it is the idea of having 3 players on 2 MIDI pianos and a keyboard player, because I want to work with the 2 sort of purely instrumental players by hand, and the third player that sort of steers the 2 MIDI pianos from the keyboard, which means that he can play with one finger, if needed, a 12 or a 20 voice chord over both pianos. One piano will be tuned 1/6 note lower. So this offers many more possibilities. And so, for example, if you play one chromatic scale on the keyboard down, both the pianos can play in the same time mixture chords of 20 voices in a very fast speed. So I have already made some experiments with these MIDI pianos that I will show to you just now. So it's going to be recorded short bits of that MIDI piano pieces. So here come 4 examples of patterns played all by one MIDI piano. The second example. The third example. And the fourth and last example. So just now I'm going to play you some more examples just in a minute. So here are some more effects that can be done with a MIDI piano that have not directly something to do with the patterns, but I will play some for you anyway. So here is the first. Here comes the second example. So just to explain a little bit, in this example, it's just very fast played scales. And in the first example, the parallel chords, this is a sort of a programmed mixture chord, which means that you can play on the MIDI piano just a one voice melody, and then the chord comes along with it in 20 parts. So here is the next example.
Wenn du es noch länger machst.
Sort of the same, but longer. Longer again. Faster and longer, so this is almost at the edge of the machine, so the MIDI piano can't stop at this speed. So this was again a pattern example. So to end this presentation, I will play you one extract, a little bit a longer extract of a piece of mine, again, where you can listen to the interlocking patterns on the piano and then on string instruments. So here comes the sound example from a piece Sempiternal Lock-In, where you can also see a lot of these patterns. Thank you very much for attending this presentation, and have a good day and all the best from Michael Pelzel.